أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس آمين أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي Assalamu alaikum everybody. Last day of Fatiha. Very sad stuff, man. You can already feel the tears running down your cheeks. Last day of Fatiha, inshallah. This is day 4 and the final day of studying this amazing, beautiful surah. The day is going to be split. The session is going to be split. Can we lower it a little bit? I don't like hearing my own self because I get a headache. Thank you. The session is going to be split in 3. And can you maybe, Amen, close the back door if you don't mind? I think that's where the echo is coming from. The session is going to be split into 3 parts. The first part is going to be finishing what we didn't finish last week, right? Last week. So last week we got to, what did we finish last week? Who can remind me? Because I forgot. Yeah, a lot of notes. Who? Huh? Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Yeah, we didn't get Surat al-Dina yet, right? So we did Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. We didn't finish everything we want to talk about there, so we're going to finish that and then finish the end of it, Surat al-Ladina an'amta alayhim ila akhirihi, to the end of it. That's going to be part 1. Part 2 is going to be, we're going to be done with the surah. I might do a quick, very quick 5-minute Q&A just to make sure everyone's on the same page with the meaning of the surah. And then part 2 is going to start. In part 2, we're going to do an overview of the surah. How is Fatiha structured? The same way that an architect would be like, how was this building built? What's the architect of this building? Or the architecture of this building, rather. We're going to ask the question, what's the architecture of this surah, this surah Al-Fatiha, okay? And the third part, obviously, is the most optional part. If you want to stay behind a little bit, 15, 20 minutes, maybe a little more, and we're going to do tadabbur together. Again, I remind you, we do Tanzeel from now on. We're doing tafsir, tadabbur. We're going to talk about an explanation of a surah or a passage, and then we're going to reflect together on the surah or passage. Remember, these are the 2 things. It's kind of balancing the mind and the heart, yeah? To learn about something is not the same as understanding something. We learn about it and then we think together, yeah? We talk about it together. We're good? 3 parts? All good? It might be a little bit longer than an hour, maybe a little bit more than an hour 15 by a little bit. I promise I won't waste your time. I really do think it's worth it. I'll tell you right now, Fatiha, maybe 10, 11, 12 years ago or so, was my personal awakening to realizing this is the word of Allah. Fatiha specifically was my realization, this is where, when I learned the stuff I want to teach you today, with the overview, part 2 of today, that's where I had to go, I'd stopped the lecture, did sujood type of stuff. So I'm really excited to share that stuff with you today, inshallah, okay? But it's going to need your attention. I know past the 27th night, it gets really lazy. I get it. I'm lazy too right now. I'm very tired. But inshallah, we'll finish with a bang, okay? All right. Questions? We're good? Okay, then again, I'll start. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Okay, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. We talked about guidance. We talked about how, so far, I'm not going to do an overview of the surah so far. We'll do that a little bit later. But we talked about how it's an introduction of Allah, who Allah is. And then it was the reaction of learning about Allah, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. I give myself totally in enslavement to you, and I worship you only. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. And I'm exhausted, I need help. Literally, we're exhausted right now and we need help. Nasta'in. Aun, again, is help that you ask for when you're already struggling yourself. Like you're pushing up the tire, you got a flat and you're just not strong enough, and then you ask for aun. Nasta'in. Ya Rab, I'm trying and I need your help. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Okay? And then we got to Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. What is the one thing we said last week? The one thing that we can ask for Allah from that will set every matter of our straight in life, whether they're about deen or they're about dunya or they're about whatever it is, our marriage, our family, our finance, our health, or whatever it might be, it's Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. Guide us to Sirat al-Mustaqim. We'll say right now, guide us to the straight path. We talked about how that's a little bit problematic, just saying straight path, but that's fine for now. Guide us to the straight path. We talked about how your heart, in terms of guidance, is like a bucket with a hole at the bottom. What do I mean by that? Who can remind me? Because this is an important thing. This is a very important point about Fatiha. Go ahead, Malik.
Like how if the bucket has a hole in it, so the water will keep on dripping, but there will be some like residue like left in the bucket.
Exactly, yeah. So we said that, Ar-Rahman, we learned about Ar-Rahman in Fatiha itself. Ar-Rahman gives without anyone asking. You don't have to ask Ar-Rahman to give. Fir'aun got Ar-Rahman. Kuffar got Ar-Rahman. Someone who worships idols gets Ar-Rahman. That's a given. You don't have to ask anything from him. He's Ar-Rahman, he gives. The womb of the mother. The fetus, the baby does not have to ask the mother, Mom, yeah, I really need to use the bathroom. No, I need food. No, it doesn't even know how to ask, actually, the baby. Yeah? But the Rahim takes care of it anyway. It doesn't have to even think about my own needs. Ar-Rahman, we don't have to think about our own needs. But there are a few things, the two things I know of, that you need to ask for them. We'll stick to this one for now. The one thing for sure that you need to ask for if you want it, you're not just going to be given it automatically, is guidance itself. That's when you have to beg for it. You can be a scholar of Islam. We talked about knowledge last week, right? The donkey example. Remember the donkey example? That Allah compares people with a lot of religious knowledge, but they're not guided at all. They're like donkeys carrying a load of books. They can't read it. It's on their back anyway, and it's just become a burden to them. Guidance is not the same as knowledge, we learned. Guidance is when you have knowledge and you ask Allah sincerely also for guidance. That's where you get guidance from. When you ask Allah sincerely. And in Fatiha, there's desperation because, again, remember I told you I was annoying last time, right? That you go on your face, you go back up, Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. Down, back up, Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. When you ask over and over for something, by definition, that means you're desperate for that thing. That's what that means. So when you're asking repeatedly, Ihdina, 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 really try to feel it. Like, Ya Rab, I'm lost. Even when I feel like I'm not lost, I know I'm lost. You told me I'm lost. Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. Right? We talked about like light and darkness, but we did that last week. What I really want to talk about is Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. I want to talk one more thing about Sirat al-Mustaqim. What did we say? Sirat, it's behind me, so I wanted to quiz you, but I already messed that up. Sirat had a couple of meanings inside the word. There's a lot of words in Fatiha where it's like it means 6 things at the same time. Like Rabb meant 5 things, and Ar-Rahman meant 3, and Rahim meant 2, and they merged together, and Malik could be 2 different words. So many, Fatiha is just full of stuff to know. Yeah? But Sirat had the 5 things, 5 sort of definitions of it, because it just means a path. There's many things for the word path. Remember Shawadama last week, right? So there's many words for the word path. So, before people think that's a mistake, that was a joke. Shadi. Okay, anyway, before someone's like, who is this guy talking about shawarma? Okay, anyway, there's 5 things for the word sirat, 5 definitions up there behind me. Number 1, it's straight. Surat is a long straight sword. Number 2, it's a particular road that is very wide. What was the benefit of that? Yeah, be you sinner, thief, whatever you are, just join us. Remember that kind of ideology? That we don't care who you are. What do we do with Sirat nowadays? We make it super, super. I don't know if your beard's long enough, dude. Like that's what we do with it. But by definition, this is very, very wide. Yeah. The third one is my favorite. It's such a beautiful thing, just even in the etymology of the word, is that it's only one. By definition, a sirat means that's the only way to get there. Like if you put something in a GPS, like a destination in a GPS, and you're going someplace and you're following a sirat, if it's indeed a sirat, what that means is that if you take a wrong turn, the GPS would be like, take a U-turn, you have to go down the sirat. There's no other way to get there. There's no other way to get there. Use the sirat or don't go there. That's basically your 2 options. Which is interesting because how many paths are there to Allah? In terms of deen, in terms of religion, there's only one. It's submission to Him. Everything else is false. This is the absolute truth. Sirat al-Mustaqim. The 4th one, it's a long road. And we're going to talk about that one a little bit more, I think, if I don't forget. It's a very long road, which means there's a journey ahead of us. And the 5th is that it's dangerous. And we're going to talk about those dangers also. Those, like, what does it mean? What do you mean dangerous? But even physically, when you think of a long road down a desert, then everyone can see you. And if everyone can see you, that means animals can see you. That means bandits can see you. That means people that want to cheat you and they see you have a caravan of stuff they want to steal from you. They want to cheat you in business. You have a lot of different dangers when people can see you, right? If people can't see you, you're safe. Like if you're traveling at night, you're safe because people can't see you. You don't have a light, whatever. But in the middle of the day, and you're walking down this open path, then there's danger inside the meaning of the word, okay? Now, mustaqim, what did we say about mustaqim? Because sirat already means straight path. So what is mustaqim doing there? If we say guide us to the straight path, what's mustaqim doing there? This is what I want to spend some time on. Straight up. Istiqama is to be straightened up, to be propped up. Istiqama, do you know, I'm going to use this example a lot for different things, but my wife and I have a plant at home. Her name is Betsy, and Betsy is a weak plant. So she cannot, it's a girl plant. Yeah, and so we have her in a planter, and she's one of those annoying ones where she can't, like, I'm using she too much. The plant, like when it grows, like when they grow kind of like vines a little bit, and for a vine you need a trellis. So you need I'll use this, you need some straight object so that she can grow up and wrap up around it, and that's exactly what she does. You don't even need to like clip her. She just knows. That's how they know to grow. You can say that plant did istiqama. That's what you can say about that plant, meaning it straightened itself. It became straight. So this road is given the quality of being straight, and you can say that means straight up, which we said, when you think about that, when Allah says He's raising you in ranks, the more you get guided, He literally means He's raising you in ranks. That's number one. Number two, you're leaving dunya and you're getting closer to who? Getting closer to Allah. But the most important thing, going back to the danger, actually, first let's talk about the long road. When you say it's a long journey, that you're insinuating difficulty. So you're looking up Surat al-Mustaqim, you have to climb it. And by the way, it's one thing that's very beautiful about what Allah is saying here about this dua that we're saying, Ihdina Surat al-Mustaqim. Usually when you ask for guidance, you're asking for guidance to get to a place, right? Like Ihdini ila Domino's, like not Domino's, they're BDS. Ihdina ila Brooklyn Halal, right? Like I need guidance to Brooklyn Halal. That means that I'm here, I need guidance to get to B. I'm at A, I need to get to B. But here we don't say Ihdina ila al-Jannah. That's the end goal, is it not? Ihdina ilayka. Guide us to you. That's the end goal. Ihdina ila al-Jannat al-Firdaus, whatever. We're not saying that. We're saying, this should give you a lot of hope actually. Pay attention to this. Ihdina Surat al-Mustaqim, the end goal seems to be what? The path itself is actually the end goal. Isn't that beautiful? You know what that means? That means every day you do not have to compare yourself to everyone else around you. You just have to compare yourself to who you were yesterday. Just get me on the path itself. That's the end goal. If you're on the path and you're just doing a little bit better day by day, then you're successful. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Just like that dude who came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he was like, Ya Rasulullah, I'll accept your religion. I'm only going to pray 2 times a day though. And he accepted it because he knows he'll get what? He'll get better. And also it's better than nothing anyway. It's not complete, but it's better than nothing. Wherever you are on this journey of yours, I've had my own journey the past 13 years I've been trying to take religion more seriously, this deen more, taking Allah and His message and His warning more seriously. And you have your own path with the stuff. Maybe you were on and you fell off and you came back up. Maybe you're just now taking it more seriously. Wherever you are, remember from Fatiha itself, you don't need me to remind you, you're saying it yourself. Ihdina Surat al-Mustaqim, the end goal is what in and of itself? The path. Meaning you trying to get closer to Allah is the end goal. But it's a long journey, meaning you're doing it for how long? Forever. Meaning it could be that you're on it for year after year, after decade, and then the last year of your life, you're like, you know what, man, screw this. I'm going to party it up. And you're off the straight path. And what happens? That's the state we learn from the Prophet ﷺ. You're raised as you died. You're raised as you died. When we say guide us to the straight path, Ya Allah, I know this is a long journey, just keep me on it. I'll dedicate myself to this, keep me on it. And you already asked for help, by the way. I need help to be on it. You're looking up and you're like, Iyaka nasta'in. I can't do this without you. And indeed, we can't do this without him, actually. Indeed, we can't do it. There is no one that climbs this thing without Allah. That's how this works, yeah? Okay, anyway. And then talking about, obviously, the danger of it. Well, we'll get to that in a minute, actually. So you understand that imagery now, right? Ihdina Surat al-Mustaqim. You're almost climbing up a ladder, getting closer to Allah. But, of course, there's more than one way to see this. So you could say Surat al-Mustaqim, it is just straight. And it could even be in kind of sort of the meaning of the thing that sets everything else straight, actually. And this is kind of like more on the philosophical side. But when you think about like you're asking Allah for guidance, meaning you're asking Allah for instructions. And I'll talk about it in this way. There are many conflicts in life, yes? Remember we said everything's created in pairs? Like even a non-Muslim can see like things have a pair, yeah? And there's many conflicts between these pairs. That doesn't mean like they're happily married pairs. There's conflicts between the pairs. They both need different things, and sometimes they need different things at odds with each other. So philosophers have actually grouped together, they try to group together every single conflict that exists amongst humanity into 4 buckets. Okay? Just keep in mind, I'll get to the end what the point of this is, but keep in mind, we just asked to be guided to what? The straight path. Okay? To be, remember Allah says we're a middle nation. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا, right? We made you a middle nation. This is that middle. Sirat al-Mustaqim is that middle path. Meaning there's many ways to go, but this is the way that's straight. This is the way that gets you like down the middle path. Does that make sense? The 4 conflicts I want to talk to you about. Number 1 is the social conflict. That's to say the conflict between man and woman. Number 2, I'll go through these and we'll go one by one. Number 2, the conflict between employee versus employer, the economic conflict. I know you know about this a lot. You were teaching me a lot about this actually, my brother. He owns a business, by the way. I'm getting ahead of myself. But when a man thinks about the conflict between man and women, who is he biased towards? Himself. Obviously. When I tell you conflict between men and women, what do you think? Oh, I freaking hate them. Like, it's all about them and nothing about yourself. Same thing with men. If you leave them alone, that is, like outside of guidance, if you leave them alone, they come up with crazy ways to balance these things out. Like, anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Then you have the economic conflict, again, employee versus employer. The employee wants more time off, more pay, less work. We don't want 40 more hour weeks. We want 32-hour work weeks. We want 20-hour work weeks, and we want more pay. And the employer's like, I need more work from you, and I want to pay you less, basically. That's kind of the conflict there. The third one is the political conflict, government versus governed. A political conflict. The government wants less rights for you, right? The governed want more rights for themselves. The government wants to collect more taxes. The governed want less taxes, yeah? And then finally, and probably most importantly, you have the internal conflict, and that is the body versus the what? Versus the ruh, versus the soul. Do you have this conflict inside of you? The body wants certain things. The body wants to eat. The body wants to drink. The body wants to procreate. In a way, we really are just animals. In a way, there's a part of us that really are just animals. We can admit to that. We have no problem in our religion in saying that. A part of us are just an animal instinct, yeah? But then you have the ruh, where maybe if you do things of the body, your ruh starts saying what? Man, I don't like this. I don't feel good. So the body does everything it wants, and then what happens to the ruh? It slowly starts to die. And maybe you're the opposite, where someone is like full monk. And what happens to the body? Like, I'll remind you of like what's the scandal, the famous scandal of like the Catholic Church. What did they commit to? Who knows? Historically at least, huh? Yeah, celibacy, they don't get married. Like, not only don't do zina, they don't get married. Which, again, Allah never wrote that on them. Allah even says, I never wrote that on them. They decided to do it and they didn't even do it right. I didn't put that, Allah says in Hadid. وَمَا كَتَبْنَاهَا عَلَيْهِمْ. We didn't put that on them. They put that on themselves and they didn't do it right. Right? We're going to talk about that, actually what that means a little bit. Al-Fatiha talks about this in a sense, about like putting something on yourself that's not meant for you. But when they committed to that, then you have a bunch of literally dead bodies of young kids under the floorboards of the Catholic Church, hiding their sins. I don't think I have to go into detail what that means. Yeah? So people that go too much, and think about all the conflicts I just said. What was the first conflict I mentioned? Who versus who? Man versus woman. That's the fun one. What's the second one? Employee versus employer. Fourth one, government versus governed. And then the last one, body versus ruh. You understand so far? I should have probably put it up there, but it's okay. The point of this is, in any of these conflicts, you might sway even a little bit towards one or what? Towards the other. Maybe you give men more rights than they deserve, or you give women more rights than they deserve. Maybe you give employees more than they deserve. Maybe you give your ruh more than it deserves. Maybe you give the government more than it deserves. And anytime you do that, what happens? Chaos happens. If you give men more than what they need, chaos happens towards them and towards women. Actually, don't think that they just benefit and that's it. No. When the government gets too much, even the government suffers, actually. When an employee gets too much, even the employee starts to suffer, actually. So we have all these opportunities to mess up all these conflicts. You understand the problem here? And what we're saying is, Ya Allah, we have all these problems. Remember, we didn't ask what we need help for. إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ, but مَا قُلْنَا لِمَاذَا. We didn't say for what. We didn't say for what we need help for. Meaning it's like a fill in the blank. We need help for with everything. Yeah? The things I know I need help with, the things I don't even know I need help with, I need you, Ya Allah, إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. It's like a blank check that you're asking for, basically. We're saying all of these things we can't figure it out on our own. All of these things we don't know what to do with ourselves. We don't know what the balance between men and women are. We don't know the employee versus employee. We don't know how to solve government versus governed. We don't know how to solve body versus ruh. And really, outside of Allah's deen, when you leave someone alone to figure these things out, do they find a balanced way to figure these things out? Answer the question. Do they balance it out? Not at all. They come up with some crazy stuff, man. Do they not? Crazy stuff. Do I need to go into detail? The funnest one is the man versus woman stuff. You have some men, like you have these, I'm not going to call names, but you have they call them red-pilled men on YouTube nowadays, right? And they say some wild things about women that are just not true. And they claim wild things about themselves that are absolutely not true. Like one opinion, for example, in that kind of scene, not everyone, but a lot of them, they'll say like when a woman committing adultery is way more than a man committing adultery. So men can, and it's fine, because men are men. But women cannot, because then, she's basically, you can throw her out and she's nothing now. Right? So you're tying a woman down to her virginity, basically, is all. You reduce a woman down to that. That's their idea. That's their idea of it. And then you have some women coming up with some crazy ideas and saying some crazy things. Like I took a gender studies class. I was very naive in college, I'll tell you. I was very dumb in college. I did not get how the world worked at all. I was in a bubble up until I went to UIC. And I took a gender studies class. Because I'm a psych major, so I had to take something like that. Wallahi, you might laugh at me. I thought that the class was going to be about how can men and women come together? How can they balance things out? How can we figure out how to live in harmony? So I see someone laughing at me. Thank you very much. And the whole thing was basically about how men are useless, essentially. And you'll hear that kind of rhetoric from women a lot of the time. And even sometimes from men, actually. Men are useless. Men are stupid. We don't need them. It's insane. What do you mean men are useless? If men are useless, why did Allah create them? Does Allah create something useless? No. What are you talking about? My point is, when you leave even the Muslim alone, the believer alone, without the guidance of Allah, they come up with some crazy stuff, yes? You understand? They come up with some crazy stuff. And we're saying, Ya Allah, the only one that can get us back to the middle, where we're not going too far left and not going too far right, is who? Is you. We need your guidance. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Straight down the middle. I don't want to veer to the left. I don't want to veer to the right. You understand? Someday, I tell my wife this. Someday I want us to just do, after we're done with what we're doing with Tanzeel right now, maybe next year, inshallah. I want to have where we have a couple classes where we talk about how Allah talks about men and women. Like, what does Allah say about men? And what does Allah say about women? And I want all of us to learn together. And I want to invite maybe Sheikh Kifah and maybe a therapist and let's just hash it out. And I don't mean fight. No, I really actually, seriously, I don't mean fight. Like, if you want to fight about it, I don't care to have you there, because I want us to actually, if you want guidance, you get guidance. If you want to be biased, you can be biased, just do it away from this class. Yeah? But if you want Allah's guidance, let's see, number one, what it is, and number two, how we can apply it to our lives. And this is what the dabbur is, right or wrong. This is what the dabbur is. Otherwise, you go to crazy stuff. Man, I can go on about this, wallah. I'm not going to, though. I think maybe I'll put you guys to sleep. You get the idea, yes? that there's these conflicts, and we not just about the men-woman thing, yeah, about like everything, that we need guidance down the middle. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Beautiful thing that we're asking for. Give me the middle, balanced path, ya Allah. I'm tired of going left or right. It's exhausting me and it's exhausting others. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Make sense? Okay, now we get to, I'm sorry, one more thing. You'll notice that huge language shift. Did you notice it? Huge language shift in Fatiha, like wild shift in language. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. I'll just say it in English. All praise and thanks are for Allah. Ar-Rahman, Rabbil Alameen, the master of all nations, all tribes of people. Ar-Rahman, the extremely unimaginably merciful and loving and caring. Ar-Rahim, the constantly and always loving and caring. Maliki Yawmiddin, the owner of the day of justice. Maliki Yawmiddin. Ihdina, guide us. We were talking about Allah and now all of a sudden we're talking to Allah. But listen, remember I told you Quran is specific, yes? You don't get to change words in Quran because it messes everything out of balance. And Fatiha especially, Quran is about balance, but Fatiha especially is a potent example of balance in Allah's words, yes? Ihdina, not ihdi. Ihdiya as-sirat al-mustaqim. What would ihdiya as-sirat al-mustaqim mean? Guide? Me. Guide me. The I. Thank you, Manik. But yeah, you're right, but maybe a little bit of a shift. Guide me to sirat al-mustaqim. Right? Or even before that, Iyaka na'budu. Sorry, I missed one. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka. You alone we enslave ourselves to. You alone, forgive me. You alone we enslave ourselves to. You alone we ask for help. Guide us. We is said 3 times. Maybe you could have expected, like, why didn't Allah say, Iyaka abudu wa iyaka asta'in, ihdiya as-sirat al-mustaqim. I enslave myself to you, because you're the one talking. It's not like maybe you're praying alone. Maybe you're not even praying. Maybe in a jama'ah, fine. Maybe it could be a rule. In jama'ah, it's nasta'in, and by yourself, it's asta'in. Astaghfirullah. You're not allowed to do that. I'm saying, why did Allah choose this word, this pronoun? Why nahnu and not ana? Why we and not I? We already established in the beginning of the surah, I'll remind you, because remember, the Quran, it flows beautifully. In the beginning of the surah, we already admitted, Alhamdulillah, all praise and thanks are for Allah. And the believer, even when nothing is working out for himself, even when nothing is working out for herself, they will still admit what? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, meaning the people of fitrah, that's the audience of the surah, the people that have goodness in their heart already, Muslim or non, they already think beyond their own selves. So even when they meet Allah for the first time, they're like, not just for me, give it to everybody, Ya Allah. Guide all of us. Guide my mother, my father, my brother's donkey's cousin, everybody. Everybody. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. It's like we're already learning from the way that we said we and not I, we're learning right away that people of goodness, and even if you're just reading it, you're not even thinking about it. By you saying we, you're thinking about the collective, as if you're admitting, I can't do this by myself, I need everyone around me, actually. Where did we get this idea of salvation is not just the stuff you do in your own personal life? Where did we get that idea from a previous surah we talked about? Surat Al-Asr. It's almost Asr is actually echoing Fatiha, but it's the same concept. Remember in Surat Al-Asr, Allah says everyone's in loss. I swear by time everyone's in loss except for people who do 4 things. Yeah? The people who believe and do good deeds. Those 2 things are personal life stuff. And then the 3rd and 4th thing are what? They guide each other to truth and they guide each other to patience. Those are collective stuff. Okay? So we see that same kind of balance in Fatiha actually. Here right now we talked about Allah, it's a personal relationship, and now we're saying we enslave ourselves to you. We need your help. We ask you for guidance. Or guide us actually. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. It's as if he's putting in your head you need each other. And to put this in our terms right now, what I learned from this is that I need all of you and all of you need me. And we all need each other. I'm not saying me because I'm the teacher here. I'm saying as a collective. It does not matter. Ihdina puts everyone on the same level actually. It doesn't matter who's speaking. Sheikh Kifah needs us as much as we need him. A believer who maybe he's hiding his faith, a closet Muslim who's a janitor at Walmart or something, needs us as much as we need him. We need each other. We're not going to make it through this without each other. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. It's a beautiful thing to actually realize here. You know, one thing I'll press on this a little bit more. I will tell you on a personal level, like I've been working for the masjid for a while, or not, on and off for a while, and I will tell you, the people who have caused me the most pain in my life are actually fellow believers. Is that not the case? Volunteers, I see smiling, some of you actually. This is very true. A lot of the time, the people that make you mad the most, the people that hurt you the most are actually fellow believers, actually. That's just how it works. Umar al-Khattab, radiallahu anhu, he gave advice to people, and he's the leader of the Muslim nation. He's the second Khalifa, yeah, obviously. So he's leading a Muslim ummah, like an actual political entity, a Muslim ummah. And he gave the advice to someone because someone was like, dude, I just hate everyone. I'm going to just stay home and pray. And he's like, it's better that you go out and mingle with people and get hurt by them than to stay inside and feel safe. And who's them in his context? Non-Muslims? Believers. He's in the center of Medina. Who's he talking to? People in Medina. You go out to Masjid Nabawi and you pray with Muslims and get hurt. Meaning, I'm going to hurt you like you're going to hurt me. My brother's going to harm me. I'm going to harm him. I'm going to harm my mother. My mother's going to cause me harm. That's going to happen. My community members, my family, my friends, my sheikh, my whoever, I'm going to cause them harm. They're going to cause me harm. That's just a given. And what we're learning a little bit, and this is more so me talking than the surah, we a little bit have to get over it. We have to get over it. Maybe you get a little bit more serious and you want to lead halakas, or you want to help with the administration of the masjid, and you're going to have meetings with fellow Muslims. You know what? Forget meetings and the parking lot, bro. Can I just rant about the freaking parking lot for a second, dude? I think give me a mic and I'm not going to talk about a masjid parking lot? Please. Masjid parking lots are the worst part of anyone's life. Yes? No exaggeration. The masjid parking lot is the bane of every Muslim's existence. Like the 5 pillars are one thing, it's sometimes difficult to pray, but to go to the freaking masjid parking lot is something else, man. That is difficult. It is annoying because these are fellow believers. You know what I mean? They'll cut you off. I've realized, by the way, the bigger the car, the more aggressive they are. Bro, just let the SUV go because they are confident. It could be the shortest little khato, and she's driving like this and ramming into you. They don't care. They do not care. It's crazy, What happened? I blacked out because I thought about the parking lot. Oh, you get annoyed by believers. These are Muslims that just prayed Jummah, dude. They just prayed Qiyam al-Layl on the 27th night, and they're ramming into you and trading paint with your cars. You know what I mean? It's annoying. And you would think, man, forget these people. Wallah, it comes in your head sometimes. And even worse, by the way. That's a funny one, maybe. Not funny at the time. It's funny right now. But then it gets even worse. Are there not major problems even in our own masjid between people? Absolutely. You probably know the drama. A lot of you you're sitting here, you know who hates who. You know who's mad at who. You know who's stepping on whose shoes, on whose toes. Some of you are smiling at each other. That's not a good sign. It's I'm going to get you after. You know what I mean? Some of you know. And it's out there. Not all of it's a secret. But what we're learning is we work collectively even against our own selves. Just deal with it. You find a way to do shura. Allah loves, by the way, Allah loves people who do shura. Allah loves people who get together and collectively come to a decision together. He loves Muslims who do that. He highlights them. And what surah is this? Oh, shura. Man, I suck at names and everything. But yeah, it's in shura. He calls out that he loves people who do shura. Men and women of faith that do shura together. And I will tell you, shura is a hard process. It's a difficult, even a parking lot is a type of shura. Who's going to go first? Are we going to listen? I once saw, back to the parking lot because I can't, I have a headache now, Allah. There's blood coming to my temporal lobe. But I once saw a dude that he was going against the way that the parking lot, the people that are wearing orange vests and saying go that way, he's going against them. And the guy in the vest, may Allah reward him, dude. This guy's brave, mashallah. I got to text him. But he stood in front of this SUV. And he's like, you can't go this way. You're going to hit the traffic. The dude kept going towards him and honked his horn in his face. Believers. It's annoying. You drop your mouth. But I'm telling you guys, we need to be patient even with this level of rudeness. Because not everyone's at the same level, are they? Even like we're not perfect ourselves. We hurt, by the way, anyone that's like, oh, I get hurt here all the time. You hurt others just by existing, dude. You literally do, whether you like it or not. You hurt people without even realizing you hurt people. Really. But without even realizing. Without even realizing. I'll remind you of the man in the time of the Prophet ﷺ who went into his masjid, where by the way he lived. He lived in the masjid, or not in the, but like a room connected. There was like a wall between him and the actual masjid. So it's basically his home, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Say sallallahu alaihi wasallam, basically his home. And the Bedouin man, who didn't know any better, came in, and what did he do? No one knows the story. What did he do? He defecated in the middle of the masjid. Because where he's from, that's what you do. There's a hut. I'll go and I'll take care of my business and then I'll pray. Backwards. I mean, like that doesn't make any sense. But he's a believer. He doesn't know. He really doesn't know. And the Sahaba were getting ready to like not even throw him up, but to kill him. Like, how dare you? This is the Prophet ﷺ's home. This is our masjid, the capital of our ummah. And you're going to come in and do your business in the middle of the floor? What's wrong with you? We just got finished praying, dude. Like, can you not put two and two together? And you know what the Prophet ﷺ did? He's like, calm down. And he went and he sat that guy. He asked people to clean it up, first of all. And he sat him down. We don't do this here. We do that outside. Here, it has to be a place of cleanliness. May Allah forgive you. May Allah give you the best level. He made dua for him. And then the Bedouin was because he saw people mad at him. He's like, may Allah give me and you Jannah, like me, meaning the Prophet. Like, and not them, basically, is what he's trying to say, right? Because he knew they were mad at them. But guys, we're dealing, like all of us, maybe we are these people that really don't know any better, or maybe we deal with these people that just simply don't know any better. I remind you, Allah had Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim in the surah, yeah? And you know, he used that same word when he talked about how believers should treat each other. أَشِدَّاءُ عَلَى الْكُفَّارِ رَحَمَاءُ بَيْنَهُم. They are loving and caring towards each other. Just like that kid who kicks the womb of the mother and causes her pain, and she still loves him. People will go beyond the bounds and harm you in meetings, in parking lots, in whatever, and you still have to show them love and care. Does that make sense? Ihdina. We think in the collective. We're learning that from Fatiha. Just from literally subtext, just from the nahnu, just from guide us. It's like almost like a secondary word in the surah, and we get this profound thought process from it. You know what I mean? It's beautiful. Okay, anyway. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. We'll quickly go through this part and then we'll take a break before part 2. Okay? Ready? You guys awake? Yes? Awake? Okay. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. I'll do a quick translation and we'll go through what the stuff means. We'll go through the language first and then some lessons. Okay? And then we'll wrap up part 1. Okay. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. Guide us to that صراط المستقيم, that straight path up towards you, that middle balanced path. Guide us to it, Ya Allah. صراط الذين. Which sirat is it? The path of those. And by the way, let me back up a little bit. I want you to think about, like my brother, he is going through med school, or inshallah, he's trying to get into med school, right? And he's been working, mashallah, really hard. We're very proud of him. But imagine yourself in that situation, or even in college, like you've been in school, you've been at work, you've been in school, you graduated from a program, you graduated and got like some certificate and some work or whatever. When you're, for example, going back to the med school example, when you're looking to go into med school, do you ask advice from someone who's also applying to med school? They're just as dumb as you are. They have no idea what they're doing, just like you have no idea what you're doing. Who do you ask advice from? People are literally already doctors. People who graduated. That's who you ask advice from. That's your example. The people next to you, you don't even know if they're going to make it with you, let alone that they're an example. And it'll be just the blind following the blind. Like, I'll do what you do if you do what I do. Like, what's that going to get you? You know? So this is the same kind of psychology happening right now. We just said, Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, guide us to that straight path. And Ya Allah, make us like the Sirat al-Ladina an'amta alayhim. Make us like them. I want to be like them. Make us like the people that you did nu'uma to. Make us like them. An'amta alayhim. Nu'uma is luxury or ease. Like when you're chilling and like you're on a sofa and things are being brought to you, or you're like at a steakhouse where like, more water, sir, and they're annoying how nice they are to you, bringing you water and steak and stuff like that. That's nu'uma. Like, Ya Allah, those same examples that you gave me, that you made it so easy. This thing, I have to climb up this whole ladder to go up to you. I want you to make this treacherous journey, make it like an elevator for me. An'amta alayhim. Ease, luxury, comfort. And that's what an'ama has in it. An'amta alayhim. Uh, uh, by the way, an'amta, you made easy for them. So guide us like you guided those who you made it easy for, you can say. That you made it easy for. Made it easy, is that past tense or present tense or future tense? Past tense, meaning these people are where? They're in the past. They're gone. We do not look towards each other for guidance. We do not use other people as the primary example. The primary example are people that are already gone. That Allah specifically said, these are people that made it. Meaning these stories in Quran are not just stories. These stories in the book are examples of Sirat al-Ladina an'amta alayhim, the path of those that you made easy for. So when you learn about the Prophet ﷺ, he's the example that you follow. When you learn about Musa ﷺ, that's the example that you follow. When you learn of even nameless people, by the way, there's many nameless people that are amazing in the book. Nameless people. My wife and I were just listening to Surat Ghafir. Did you know that in the cabinet of Fir'aun, while he actually made the kill order for Musa, he got sick of Musa ﷺ for preaching the message for the Pharaoh, and he made a kill order. Dhuruni aqtul Musa. I'll kill him myself. And you know who stood up and talked? A closet Muslim that worked in his government. Did you know that? Little known fact. There was a closeted Muslim in the palace of the Pharaoh himself. Amazing. We don't know his name. We don't know his name. But he's of this group too. People that we know their name, people that we don't know their name. You follow? The people that left, the people that are in the past. غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ. غَيْر, nothing like these other two group of people. When you say غَيْر, you're like nothing like this. غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ. Unusual language. And there's two groups. So we have how many groups total? 3. The first one, the people that we want to be like, which by the way, there's only one of them. Just like there's only one sirat, there's only one group of people. And then there's 2 groups of people that we're asking Allah, don't make us like them. This is a long conversation. I'm going to try to make it a 10-minute conversation, okay, for the sake of your sleep patterns. Okay. Al-Maghdubi alayhim and al-Dallin. Not like the Maghdubi alayhim and not like the Dallin. Don't make us like these 2 groups. Who are these 2 groups? Let's go through the linguistics first, and we'll talk about some things from a hadith of Prophet ﷺ, and we'll talk about who these people might be, okay? Al-Maghdubi alayhim. What's ghadab? Anger. Not like those who deserve and who get anger. Not those who incur anger. غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ. Is it said in the surah who is angry at them? No. What language would you expect here? What language would you expect? Yeah. Not like those who earned your anger. You actually find that in translations, actually. If you open up a translation, you might find, don't make us like those who earned your anger. The word your is nowhere in the statement. Not like those who earned anger. And there's kind of like a blank here. From who? And there's a couple things that you can actually get from this. Number one, it actually might be a mercy to them. It might be a mercy. Because mercy seems to be kind of the overall package of Fatiha in a way. So Allah, out of His mercy, didn't put His own name next to the anger because that would make it extreme and scary. That's number one. That's one benefit you get from this. But actually, it could also be these people, whoever they are, they do so much wrong that everyone's angry with them. Everybody's angry with them. These people messed up so bad. We'll talk about who they are. These people must have messed up so bad that Allah is angry with them, the angels are angry with them, humanity is angry with them, their parents are angry with them, their children are angry with them, their neighbors hate them, everyone hates them. Maghdubi alayhim. They get angered at from everywhere. Maghdubi alayhim. You understand so far? That's in Maghdubi alayhim. We'll talk about who precisely they are in a little bit. Walad dallin. What does dal mean? The people, nor those who are lost. Don't make us like people who are lost. And even, Allah, I believe that, how we have med in Quran? Like, wala dallin. It's like, don't make us like the dal. Like, they're way out there. Don't make us anything like them. Wala dallin. Don't make us anything like them. The people who are lost. Who are these people? There is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that he told us, Al-Maghdubi alayhim is like the Jews, or is actually says is the Jews, and Ad-Dallin are the Christians. He said this is a Sahih hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, a couple things about this. First of all, does this mean that they are the only groups of al-maghdubi alayhim and ad-dallin. It does not mean that that's all that they are. These two groups that we're asking protection from, it doesn't mean don't make us like the Jews, don't make us like the Christians. If Allah wanted us to say that, He would have just said it. غَيْرِ الْيَهُودِ وَلَا النَّصَارَى. He could have just said that. Don't make us like the Jews, don't make us like the Christians. He could have just put that in the surah. But He said غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. Meaning what the Prophet ﷺ is teaching us is, if you want a case study of مَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ, study who? Some of the Jews. A lot of the Jews highlighted in Quran are مَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ. A lot of them are. Not all of them. Allah says, by the way, because I know especially with like the Jewish community right now, there's a lot of, like a lot of what's going on. Yes, rightfully so, I would add. But I want to remind you, just to balance your mind and your heart a little bit, Allah Himself even actually says in Quran that there are people from the Jewish community that you trust them with all of your wealth and they'll return every penny. There are people that are good people. Allah says Himself, and we believe in the word of Allah before we believe our own eyes. I want to just call that out. And then He also says that there are people from that community that you give them their money and they'll be like, what money? There are those people too. You understand? Nowadays there's a lot of complications behind that, but let's just keep it to what Quran talks about for now. Yes? غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ. These are some examples of them. And some examples of al-Dallin are who? In Quran? Some of the Christian community. Now what does this mean? I will give you a really silly, stupid example, and then we'll go into like precisely what this could mean for us, okay? I have two nieces. They're here, alhamdulillah. They met for the first time today. Lara and Alinat, okay? Alinat is almost 5. She's 4.5, and she said she's going to be 5.5 soon because she doesn't know that she'll just be 5 soon, okay? And Lara is 3 right now, right? MashaAllah. So who's older? Alinat. Alinat has a little bit more experience. Now let's say, for example, that they're at my house, and they're hanging out, and I have a cookie jar on my table. And I'm like, Aninat? Aninat's the older one, yes? So she's in charge. Aninat, you and Lara don't eat from the cookie jar. It's okay. I'm not yelling at you. Everything's fine. Don't eat from the cookie jar. Okay? And then I leave. And I come back, and both of them are opening up the cookie jar and eating cookies from the cookie jar. Both of them. Aninat in that example, who gets more anger from me in that example? Why? I told her, you're in charge, don't eat any cookies. And here you are eating cookies. And then Lara, I'm not really totally mad, but what's wrong with her? She's just lost. She's just doing it because Anina's doing it. She's just lost. Al-Maghdubi alayhim are people who know right and wrong. They were told right and wrong and did it anyway. Or didn't do what they were supposed to do anyway. They knew very well what to do. They had the knowledge, didn't do what they were supposed to do. That's Maghdubi alayhim. A lot like a lot of the Jewish community, a lot like their history actually. Al-Dallin are the opposite problem. They're people who have no knowledge. Or they have super false knowledge that is grounded in nothing. No logic, no history, nothing. No scripture, nothing. And they do a lot of actions anyway. The first one, a lot of knowledge, no action. The second one, no knowledge, a lot of action. And they do weird stuff with those actions, yes or no? Weird stuff with those actions, yeah? And going back to the Jew and Christian example, we have a lot of stories about the Jews in Quran. A lot of stories. So for example, I'll paint you the picture. I remember when I learned this as a kid, and I was like my mouth literally dropped, like how could they do this? The Jews of Bani Israel, who were they under subjugation of for many, many years, for generations actually? The Pharaoh. And who saved them from the Pharaoh? Musa alayhi salam took all these 600,000 estimated people, almost 1 million people, 500,000 people you can say, and they literally, not only did they save them like he just killed the Pharaoh and that was it, he split the sea for these people. They walked between Kattawdin Azim, 2 seas that got split as if they were 2 mountains made of water. And they walked right through. Like they saw it for themselves that Allah is the truth. Yes or no? That this prophet, alayhi salam, Musa alayhi salam, is telling the truth. Very clear cut. Yani if someone split even a cup of water, I'd be like, hey, he's probably got something. I'd probably listen to this guy. He's probably telling the truth, right? Like he's probably has something. He's not just talking from out of his rear end. I should probably listen to him, okay? What's the first thing that they do when they cross the sea? They start worshiping a golden cow. What? What? After all that? And I gave you a book? And Musa leaves for like a couple days and he comes back and they're worshiping a cow. That's like, I don't have to explain this in more words, do I? Maghdubi alayhim. Dude, you knew. What more did you want? How do you go from like the ultimate tawheed? You have a history of it. You were already following tawheed while you were slaves. And now all of a sudden you have such an inferiority complex for other ethnicities, other cultures, that you worship a cow. What's wrong with you? That's maghdubi alayhim. And ad-dallin, let's talk about the Christians for a little bit. The problem with this other group, historically with the Christians, is that they will make claims that are founded in nothing. I will give you the best summary that I've heard that kind of highlight the problem here. Are you ready? The Christian creed, if you're not super familiar with it, they believe, astaghfirullah, na'udhu billah, they believe that God himself incarnated himself into a human version of himself and then sacrificed himself to convince himself to forgive humanity. Makes sense, right? Dallin. No basis of knowledge. Their scholarship, this is not me making it up, you go learn for yourself. Their scholarship already knows their books are corrupt. It's an open secret. Their scholars already know. It's not like they don't know. They know. They know that this is just made up. That some dude just كتبه بأيمانهم. They wrote it with their right hands. They just wrote it. They didn't have any basis for it. And if you argue with them, what happens? A lot of the time, hopefully not all the time, but a lot of the time, what happens? You're like, hey, so you believe that Jesus was the Son of God? He's like, yeah. Well, why do you believe that? Well, because he had the virgin birth. We believe that too, right? Maryam alayhi salam then was not married and had Isa alayhi salam. Oh, okay. But what about Adam? If Jesus alayhi salam is the Son of God because he had no father, does that make Adam the super Son of God because he had no mother and no father? That's Allah's argument, by the way. That's a good freaking argument, dude. That's a good freaking argument, wallah. And then they think, and they're like, you know what, man? You have to have faith. Like that's how they react. They get anxious and they kind of get like they have a little bit of animosity. You just have to have faith, and they get angry at you. Dallin. You can think if you want to, but you choose not to. It's not just people who don't know. See, that's different. Maybe people that don't know, maybe they won't be dal if you give them knowledge. These are people who they don't know and they don't care to know. There's a famous quote in Quran. You guys need to think about this quote for the rest of your lives because we fall into both. By the way, we're talking about Jews and Christians, but when Allah gives us examples of Jews and Christians, who's He really talking to? Us. We do the same things. We have our own golden calves, by the way. You go to Pakistan or India, and some of even the Arab Muslim world, and they'll wear what? What are those things? Those stupid, what is that? The blue eye? Oh, this protects me from hasad. Where do you get that from? Dallin. We become dallin. And don't we have our own community of even very knowledgeable people who do really crazy, evil things? And they know better. Huffaz of Quran, scholars of Islam, that everyone obeys. And they'll get on a microphone and say, don't talk about the people of Gaza because then you'll disobey your leaders. You hear about this? This is actually Biden called Saudi Arabia, hey, I need a fatwa. The Muslims are getting on my case. Can you tell them? Don't talk about Gaza? I want to say the name, but I won't say the name. It's really sad. Wallahi, it's heartbreaking. And one of the most famous scholars of our time got on a microphone and commanded all the Muslims, do not talk about Gaza. A'udhu billah. That, Allahu alam, I'm not going to say that person, that kind of action, maghdubi alayhim. Yes or no? How dare you? You know way better than this. You're a hafiz. You have the book of Allah between your hands, Allah says all the time. You have it between your hands and you do what you do. How dare you? You understand? When we study this, it's not to be like, haha, silly Jews. Haha, silly Christians. No. We're saying, Ya Allah, by the way, because He could have said, don't make us Jews, don't make us Christians. No, He said, Maghdubi alayhim wa ad-dallin. Ya Allah, I really don't want to be these people. I can be these people. Some of us, by the way, might fall in either camp. We really might. I might be in this camp as I speak, as I'm giving a lecture. I might be maghdub. I might be. As I give a lecture, I might be dal. I might be. I need to continuously ask Allah, I can't be of these two people. Protect me from being of these two people. Does that make sense? SubhanAllah. A lot of lessons here. I really want to talk more about this. But I'm really worried about your patience with me. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. Okay? A 5-minute break. And I'm going to give you 5 minutes. And then we're going to get back together for part 2. What's part 2 going to be? Structure. Overview of Fatiha. I told you guys the example of we studied the surah. I walked you through the city of Fatiha, the surah of Fatiha, and we walked in and saw Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim and Malik Yawmuddin and all these different things. We talked about Siratal Ladhina An'amta Alayhim. And then we're going to get in a helicopter. We're going to go above the surah, look down and look at the landscape. And we're going to see, I think you'll agree, some pretty inexplicably amazing things, inshallah, okay? 5 minutes. If you don't mind, especially the guys, I'll shake up with you at the end. I want to just make sure I have everything set. So just give me no questions right now. Give me 5 minutes and I'll give you 5 minutes. Just let's not bother each other. And I want to review so that I'm ready, inshallah. 4-0, wait for it, 9. Cool? All right. Thanks, you guys. All right. I'm be totally honest with you guys. I don't know how long this might take. It might be 10, might be 20 minutes. I don't really care. Even if you're falling asleep, I'm really excited to share this with you. So I'm going to just excite myself. We'll start again. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. My head's kind of racing right now. Where to start? Let me start with this. I want to start with the concept actually. One thing I was thinking about, I'll leave Fatiha behind me. One thing that I've been thinking about, because Fatiha is a dua. We know this, yes? We start by glorifying Allah, and then we basically just make a dua. And that's what Fatiha is. You're making a dua every time you say Fatiha. Yes, you understand this? The dua, is it said in the collective level or the individual level? What did we learn? The collective. Why? How do we know it's collective? Ihdina, guide us. It's not guide me or I worship you. It's we worship you. We need your help. Guide us. It's a collective dua. In Quran, the best du'as that we have were du'as that Allah Himself revealed and gave us. Yes, we can agree. The best du'as are the ones that He taught us about. Yeah. And I was thinking a lot about there's a lot of du'as that are collective that use nahnu, that use the we, and there's a lot of other du'as that use the I. Like Rabbi inni lima anzaltu ilayya min khayrin faqir. Ya Rabb, whatever you can give me, I can really use it right now. Right? There's a lot of kind of different, even actually Surat An-Nas, Qul a'udhu, I seek refuge in you. Right? And so on and so forth. So Nas is a really good example of it just being in the I. And I was trying to think, and if you think I'm wrong, correct me during the tadabbur session. This is just my own thoughts. One thing as a pattern I picked up is when the situation is sort of normal, like there's no threat looming, then the nahnu is used, then we is used. When there's no threat, we think in the we. When there's a specific particular threat threatening you at that moment or threatening the person at that moment, the I is used. So Musa alayhi salam, when he said, Rabbi inni lima anzaltu, my master, whatever you can give me, I can really use it. He was literally homeless and wanted for murder at that moment. So obviously he feels in great tragic need in his own personal life. So the ana is used, so the I is used. Does that make sense? So just one thing I wanted to call out. Before we move on, 2 things. Number 1, I want to call out that, especially those of you who are here or try to be here at least for all 4 sessions, seriously, may Allah reward you. What you just did during the month of Ramadan is a huge deal that you sat and listened to some bozo talk about one of the surahs of Allah. That is a huge deal. Don't let anyone undercut that, especially not yourself or shaitan. That is a huge deal, even if it's just Fatiha. And by the way, Fatiha is in fact enough. Fatiha, I remind you, the Quran is a balanced book. It's the last message to mankind. Fatiha is Kitab. It's the essence, the summary, the point of the book is Fatiha. Fatiha summarizes and gives you everything you need to know about Allah, about yourself, and about history, all in 25 words. SubhanAllah. 25 words, this thing. 25 words Allah reveals in billions of times a day. More, actually. That undercuts it. Billions of times a day this is repeated. From 25 words, the best marketer in all existence, Allah, used 25 words and everyone repeats it till the end of time, SubhanAllah. So I want to, seriously, may Allah reward you, and I want to call out that this is now a responsibility on you, that you learn this surah. You've done what most Muslims in the world actually don't know what this means, which is a tragedy. That's the point of my part of Tanzeel actually, is to try, I'm trying to reconnect myself with what this means. and I'm trying to share the little that I know with anyone that wants to listen. And Fatiha is the most important thing to share. And now you know what it means. Even if you're rusty, it's fine. Even if you're rusty, you know what Allah is saying now. That's a big deal. But now that comes with the responsibility. Are you, number one, going to use it in your salah and really think about it? And number two, are you really going to live by it in your life? Are you going to be a person of hamd? Are you going to be a person that follows Allah as the Rabb, as the Master? Are you going to be a person of rahmah yourself? Are you going to be a person that stands for justice, like Malik Yawmiddin, is the Master of the Day of Judgment, the owner of the Day of Judgment? Are you going to be someone who desperately calls to Allah, guide me, I'm lost? Or are you going to assume, like Al-Maghdubi alayhim, that you are guided and you don't need to do anything special because you are God's chosen people, like Al-Maghdubi alayhim? Or are you going to be lost the rest of your life? I don't want to know anymore. I don't want to be like that. Are you going to be like them? All the lessons that you need as a believer, subhanAllah, in 25 words, man. What excuse do we have? And that's not to say that you need to have memorized all the meanings of everything on your own. That takes a while. It does take a while. I forget them myself. What I did for you, I should have probably put it up here to show you. I put all of my notes. Here are some of the pages. This is 30, not this, but the whole document is maybe 40 pages, 30, 40 pages of all of my notes. Last night yesterday spent a couple hours just trying to really perfect them and trying to get them very legible that you can search. I put a table of contents, I put an outline, so if you just want to learn about Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, you just click Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, it takes you there. It tells you about the root letters, it tells you the significance. I'll share the PowerPoint, I'll add in pictures later. I didn't have time to put in pictures for you. I'll add the PowerPoint that we had and everything like that if it's useful. But so use this as a resource, and if you forget, don't be like a dhalin and assume, I don't need to do anything. Go back and relearn. Remember, what's especially with Quran, you have not learned something once unless you've learned it twice. The second time is the first time. I guarantee it. So this is your first time. Congratulations. You're not anywhere near done. You're not done. But don't undercut what mashallah, you guys tried to do and what I've also tried to do with you. Okay? May Allah accept from us. I mean, especially in this month. Okay. That was the first thing. And I kind of forgot the second. The second thing is now saying all that, here's in a nutshell what we studied. Yeah? There's obviously in each word, there's lessons, and each word there's more things and root letters, but this is what we learned in a nutshell. Before I move on, I want to make sure everyone's on the same page because I'm going to probably go back and forth between Alhamdulillah and Iyaka na'budu and all these different things without translating them a lot of the time. I'm going to try to, but I feel like it would slow us down. Does anyone have any questions about the understanding of Fatiha overall as we've understood it so far? Now's your time to ask. And don't be shy to ask, please, really. I mean, this is a collective. Go ahead. Khalid. Yeah, I disagree with you. It's not all about the next life. Surat al-Mustaqim does not necessitate that this is anchored in the next life. Actually, there is no Surat al-Mustaqim in Jannah, for example, right? This is something that we have to follow in this life, right? So two things that I would say kind of counter, because Fatiha is all about balance, like we talked about, right? The two things that open up the meaning to dunya and akhirah are Iyaka nasta'in. What does that mean? You alone, we ask for help. And it's blank, meaning it could be help with anything. And then specifically, Surat al-Mustaqim, that is something that we go through in this life, and there's a Surat al-Mustaqim on Judgment Day. You know this, yeah? There actually is a literal path that you have to cross above Jahannam, actually. So it's both. So again, we're people that keep both eyes open. We're people of balance. Fatiha actually talks about this life and the afterlife together. Does that make sense? So both are there. You agree? Okay. Very, very, very good question. Good? Okay. Bismillah. I'm going to make you think right now. I'm going to annoy you. And I'm going to keep talking, by the way. I'm going to, some of you are going to fall asleep while I'm doing this. I really don't care. Wallahi, I don't care. I love this. I was studying this at home. And I even, just yesterday, I'm like, I may sujood again. This is just amazing to me. SubhanAllah. I really hope that this hits you like it hits me even more, really. That's the thing I'm really afraid that I'll mess it up. But may Allah put barakah in my speech and accept from us. Say Ameen. And let's freaking do this thing, yeah? All right. Observations. We're not talking about specific ayahs anymore. We're going to go overview. We're going to talk about the surah as a whole and how it's structured. Okay, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let's first talk about the overall balance or the overall the overview of the surah. I reminded you again, Quran is a balanced book. We're a balanced nation, and Fatiha is the epitome of balance, actually, in our faith. Okay, I've been saying that almost every session so far, and here's where we're going to talk about, well, what does that really mean? And you've seen it already. So, for example, Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is balanced by what? Malik Yawmiddin. Yeah, so we've already seen semblances of it as we go. We even have knowledge and no action, action and no knowledge. It's balanced out by each other, actually. So there's balance already in small examples everywhere. But we're looking at macro right now. Check this out. So here, let me start from the beginning. First of all, we're going to operate under the opinion that Fatiha's first ayah is actually not Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It's actually Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. I'm not going to go into detail with that. If you want to talk more about that, let's do that during the Tadabbur session. But I will tell you that actually, are you guys familiar with what a hadith Qudsi is? Raise your hand if you're familiar with what that means. Well, let's start from the beginning. What's a hadith? It's a saying or an action of the Prophet ﷺ. So if I shared some hadith like, oh, he said this or he said this, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that's a hadith. A hadith Qudsi is a really, really special hadith where the Prophet ﷺ is actually on behalf of Allah narrating something to us, but it's not Quran, because when Allah speaks, it's Quran. But when the Prophet puts it in his own words, it's called a what? Hadith Qudsi. Did you know that there's a Hadith Qudsi where Allah himself gives tafsir of Fatiha? Isn't that wild? Like when the Prophet talks about Fatiha, you shut up and listen. Like that's what that means. When the Prophet gives an explanation of a surah, that's simply what that surah means. He doesn't do that a lot, by the way, sallallahu with everything. But when he does, you shut up and you listen. Even when a Sahaba talks about it, you got to shut up and listen. I remind you that Ibn Abbas who said Ar-Rahman is for people in this life, Ar-Rahim is for believers in the afterlife. That's a Sahaba that said that actually. That's why we follow it, right? But Allah himself actually gave tafsir of the surah. And when he started from ayah 1, guess where he started? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So we're going to operate, if Allah calls it ayah 1, we're going to call it ayah 1. You understand? So that's where we're going. If you want to talk more about that, we can after. I'm prepared to talk about it, inshallah. Okay. So that's the first one. You know what he said? I won't go through the whole hadith. It's a long one. You should Google it. Hadith Qudsi Fatiha, you'll find it, okay? But he essentially cuts the surah in half. I'm going to call it thirds right now. So you can call it a Fatiha. Okay? Thank you for the two people that laughed at that, including a man. You can kind of cut it in half, okay? This first part, I'm working with two things now. This first part, I'll just point. Right here, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Malik Yawmiddin. Who's that all about? Yeah. There is not a single word in there about anyone else but who? About Allah. Allah actually highlighted in these 3 ayat, this is for me. In the hadith. You following so far? He said, that's for me. Then this next part, I'm going to skip 4 actually. We'll go 5, 6, and 7. Ihdina Surat al-Mustaqim. Till the end of it, ila akhirihi. He says this is for who? Well, you tell me, who's it for? This is for us. So far, Fatiha has a balance of what's for Allah and what's for us. What part did I leave out? The very middle, the center of the surah. Who's that for? Iyyaka na'budu is for who? For Allah. We worship, that's for, obviously not for us, that's for who? That's for Allah. Wa iyyaka nasta'in, and we ask for help. Who's that for? That's for us. So the middle's for both of us. So when Allah cuts it in half, like he means it. Yeah? You see that? It's freaking beautiful. I remind you that people mean for me to believe this is a freestyle. That's what people want me to believe, that this was just said. Yeah, okay. All right. Let's go a little bit further though. Let's hone in on the middle one. Okay? The middle one's interesting because there's you can almost, when I said, remember, you can cut it in half. The halfway point is like this wow, this and, the and here and the wow here, the wa over here. That's where you can really cut it in half. And when you do that, Iyyaka na'budu becomes a summary of the first half, and Iyyaka nasta'in becomes a summary of the second half. As if Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Malik Yawmiddin. What's the ultimate conclusion? Iyyaka na'budu. and then إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ. And what exactly does that mean? That's the rest of it. That's crazy. That's crazy, yeah? You seeing this so far? You guys following, yes? I'm trying to go slow because I can't tell on your faces what's going on. Okay, bismillah. A little bit more though. I shared this with you, some of you before, but I'm going to share it again because I have no shame. So, what's interesting about Fatiha, how many sentences do you see? It's actually not 7. Grammatically speaking, and by the way, ayahs don't follow rules. Ayahs can be a letter or a word even. It can be like a couple of letters together, like qaf or kaf ha ya mim sad or alif lam mim, or it can be a single word or half a sentence or a fragment or whatever. Allah does what He wants with His ayat, yes? Actually, this 1 through 3, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Malik Yawmiddin, is sentence number 1. Okay, you following so far? Grammatically. Sentence number 2, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Sentence number 3, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, sirat alladhina an'amta alayhim, ghayril maghdubi alayhim, waladdallin. How many sentences? 3. Notice how they also fit in for Allah, both of us, for us. You see that? But there's something more going on here. I hope I don't mess this up. Okay. There are some of you here, very few of you here, took a grammar class with me. And in grammar, in Arabic grammar, you learn that there are 2 types of sentences in Arabic grammar. Jumla ismiya and jumla fi'liya. Don't be afraid. You don't need to know that. There are 2 types of sentences in Arabic. Noun sentences and verb sentences. I want to briefly talk about, like we're in first grade, what's a noun and what's a verb, because it's important. Pay attention to this and you'll get something out of it, inshallah, okay? A noun, what's it like? Go give me an example of a noun. Shadi is a noun, yes. Shams, chair, tree, yeah, clicker, mouse, right? That's a noun. That's an ism, okay? Give me an example of a verb. Walking. Yeah, to pray. Praying, he prayed. That's a verb, right? He annoyed me. That's a verb. He smacked me in the back of the head. That's a verb, right? Those are all verbs. Now, how can you tell between a noun sentence and a verb sentence in Arabic? It's whatever the sentence starts with, that's what it is. So if you start with a noun, then that's what kind of sentence in Arabic? A noun sentence. If you start with a verb, that's what kind of sentence in Arabic? A verb sentence. So if I, for example, said, the phone fell down, is that a noun sentence or a verb sentence? The phone fell down. That's a noun sentence because it starts with the phone. The phone is a noun. You following me so far? Okay, good. The last thing you need to know about nouns and verbs in Arabic, nouns are permanent. Nouns are not stuck in past tense, present tense, future tense. What kind of words are stuck in past tense, present tense, and future tense? Verbs. I ran, I am running, I will run. I fell down, I will fall down, I plan on falling down, I am falling down, as we speak I'm falling down, right? That's verbs. They're stuck in time. They're temporary. Verbs are temporary. Nouns are not temporary. What are nouns? Nouns are permanent. You following me so far? Here's where things get really juicy. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen starts with a noun. Starts with a noun. That sentence is actually a noun sentence. Okay? The second sentence we're going to skip. We'll talk about this later. Remember I told you this guy's really weird? Remember last session I told you this one's really weird? We'll get back to that in a minute. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. What kind of sentence is that? Guide us. That's a verb. It's really cool that the sentence that's for Allah is a noun sentence. It's a permanent sentence like Allah is permanent. And the sentence for us is a verb sentence because we are temporary. Even grammatically, he kept in mind, when do I use a noun? When do I use a verb? That's mind-blowing. That's mind-blowing. The middle one we didn't talk about. Who's the middle one for? The middle sentence, who's that for again? That's between us and him. This is weird. The expected language here is na'buduka wa nasta'inaka. This is extremely weird language. This is actually a jumla fi'aliyya with a damir muqaddam, which just basically means in English that it's a verb sentence with a noun in the front. So it's literally both. Grammatically, it is both a noun sentence and a verb sentence. SubhanAllah. So for each sentence, he even grammatically kept to who's permanent, who's temporary, which one gets both of us. And by the way, this is actually really cool that it's a verb sentence with a noun in the beginning because the first part is for who? Iyaka na'budu, we worship you. Who's that for? Allah, the first thing is actually a noun. It's actually a noun and then a verb sentence. it's just funny. Well, at some point it just gets funny, subhanAllah. You seeing that though? You guys understand? Any questions about this so far? Okay, we have a lot more to go, so you're going to have to wake up if you're sleeping. Okay, bismillah. Talking about some themes. What's the first one I had for you? Yes, the first one I had for you was this one. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Malik Yawmiddin is all knowledge of Allah. All of that is just things that we now know about Allah. We know Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, we know Rahman Ar-Rahim, we know Malik Yawmiddin. You're following so far? Okay. Knowledge, as we learned just today, should lead you to what? Action. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in was actually an action. Ya Allah, I learned about you. I give myself totally to you in slavery. I willingly give myself to you. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. The knowledge led to what? Action. I told you, I'll remind you again, that iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in, this is like the believer, even if you're already a Muslim, this is where you convert all over again, actually. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in, you're actually refreshing your Islam when you say this. You're signing the dotted line over and over and over again. You understand? This is your convert story, is actually this ayah. Now, the next one, Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, Sirat al-Ladina anamta alayhim. These two, guidance is when you combine knowledge with action. That's what guidance is. When you learn something and it causes you to act, then that's when you know that you have guidance. So you have knowledge, you have an action that you did because of the knowledge, and then you ask to be people that use knowledge to do good actions, and then you have two examples of someone who has knowledge but doesn't do an action, or someone that has no knowledge and does actions anyway. The whole thing is a balance between knowledge and action. SubhanAllah. Seeing this? Okay. I'll give you guys another one. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Malik Yawmiddin. Let's talk about this a little bit. Alhamdulillah. Does everyone have a personal relationship with Allah? Yes, we do. So we have a personal relationship with, for example, Alhamd. Being grateful to Allah is a personal thing. Allah being our Rabb, we being a slave to Him, is a personal relationship. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. People on a personal level experience Allah's what? Mercy, His love and His care. That's a personal experience. Malik Yawmiddin. We're going to be raised individually. That's how we're raised on that day. We know this, right? So the entire first part over here, personal faith. Everything about Allah so far is personal. And that leads us, were we saying, I worship you and I ask for help, or what were we saying? We worship you, we ask for help. Personal faith is balanced out against collective action. That personal faith, when everyone with personal faith gets together, they collectively do an action, guide us to the straight path. And then we're given the people, Sirat al-Ladina an'amta alayhim, the people that you favored, Ya Allah. These are the people who had both a personal relationship and collective action. غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. People that were missing one of the two. Either they were missing the personal knowledge, the personal relationship of Allah, or they were missing the collective action that they were supposed to be doing. And these people are غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. Fatiha is balanced between personal understanding of Allah and collective action for Him. You see that? SubhanAllah. One last one like this, one last thematic overview. In the beginning, Allah calls Himself Rabbil Alameen, the master of all nations. And at the end, all nations are divided into three. The people that Allah favored, the people that are in anger, and the people who are lost. So we have the Rabb of nations being talked about, and then humanity being talked about, and it's balanced between who those nations are and the master of those nations, subhanAllah. You seeing that so far? Do you see how many ways you can cut this up? Isn't that crazy? And I'm not giving you all the ones I have, by the way. I'm just giving you the ones I thought were really cool. SubhanAllah. Okay. Ring structures. Who remembers this stuff? Who was here when we talked about it? Raise your hand. I'm actually curious. How many of you were here? Few of you. Okay. So I put a refresher for what a ring structure is. There's a lot of stuff happening with structure in the Quran. One such example of a really cool structure that Allah has is called ring structures, okay? I'll just give you an example of one you're probably familiar with. You probably know the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. Raise your hand if you know pretty well the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. Okay, I figured this would be a good example for that reason. The story of Yusuf, the actual surah itself, by the way, not the story that we know, the surah, which is his story mostly, alayhi salam. Let's go through what are the main themes of that story. It'll give you an idea of what is a ring structure, and then we'll bring it back to Fatiha. You follow what we're doing so far? We're just doing a refresher of ring structures, and then we'll see does Fatiha have such a structure in it. Okay, so in the beginning is just a prologue, the opening of the story. Next is the vision of Yusuf alayhi salam. What's his vision? Who remembers the dream that he had? Yeah, the sun, the moon, and the stars. 11 stars, the sun and the moon, making sujood towards him. Okay. The third part, Yusuf alayhi salam disputes with his brothers, and the plot that the brothers had against him. Okay. The next one, Yusuf alayhi salam's relative promotion. So he was in a well, and then he was promoted to a servant. It's still a problem. It's not a great promotion. It's still an issue, yes? Notice that all of these so far are problems, yes? They're all problems so far. The next one is the attempted seduction of Yusuf by the woman. Remember the wife, Imrat al-Aziz, yeah? The wife of the Aziz tried to seduce Yusuf. Haytalak, we talked about that a little bit. The next part, Yusuf alayhi salam gets thrown in jail for a crime he didn't commit. So far, it's not looking so great. Yeah, so far these are problems that we know about. And we're at the halfway point of the surah, by the way, yes? So far it's just been problems. Yusuf alayhi salam is in prison, the interpreter of the visions of both prisoners, and the prophet of monotheism. That's the middle. You understand, this is the halfway point of the story, yes? You understand what I'm doing so far? It's just a division of the themes and the main points of the surah so far. Look what happens as I keep going. Then you have Yusuf alayhi salam interpreting the vision not for prisoners, but for a king. Kind of an upgrade. Then you have the outcome of the woman's seduction. Yusuf alayhi salam is exonerated and he's freed from jail. You'll notice that the problem in E is solved in the second E, in E prime. The next part, Yusuf alayhi salam gets a real promotion from a prisoner to a ruler. What happened before? He was at the bottom of a well and became a servant. Now he goes from prisoner to ruler. So there's a change in status in the story in both parts. Next up, Yusuf alayhi salam disputed with his brothers. They didn't know it was him and he was disputing with them. Notice what happened in the first C. Yusuf alayhi salam disputed with his brothers. You following what's happening so far? Who can explain to me what's happening so far? It's like mirroring itself. The surah is mirroring itself. The next part, the fulfillment of Yusuf's vision. The mother of Yusuf alayhi salam and his 11 brothers go and they exonerate Yusuf alayhi salam, and he says to his father, this is what I dreamed about. And then you have an epilogue, the ending comments of Allah of the story. You see what happened here? Allah, when He speaks, it's perfect, it's balanced. That even when you highlight what He's talking about, it's like it's a mirror image of itself. You understand? It's a beautiful thing that Allah puts all over the book. We had literally 2 hours of lecture about this. If you want it, it's on YouTube. Beautiful, beautiful thing. It's called a ring structure because the ending goes back to the beginning. And it kind of has a middle part. You see that? The middle part is him being in jail, right? And that's where his life became the worst and where it turned around. That's why it's in the middle. You understand? SubhanAllah. Anyway, can we apply this to, because we're talking about Fatiha right now, can we apply it to Fatiha? Okay? This is based heavily on the work of, what's his name? Munir Iltal. So thank you so much, Malik, for sharing that with me. He's a really cool resource. I'll share that with you guys later, but this is just from a blog that Malik showed me. May Allah reward him. So I'm going to bring this back up here. Okay, this is going to be a little bit harder to follow. I need you to pay attention. So everyone wake up a little bit, pay attention. Now, here's the surah on the left. There is a ring structure actually happening here, and here's a proposed one. Ayahs 1 through 3 are about worship of Allah. Ayahs 5 through 7 are about prayer. You're asking for something from Allah. And in the middle, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. It's a combination of worship and a dua and a prayer. You following so far? We're going to zoom into each one of these three. You ready for that? It's going to get more intricate. Let's zoom into the first part, to A, to the worship part. Specifically, Ayah 1 covers Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, covers Allah's grand nature and His awesomeness. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. We even talked about at the end of times what declaration is made. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. And then you have 2 mentions of Allah's mercy. Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. It's said twice. And then it ends with Malik Yawmiddin, the master, the owner, the king of the day of judgment, of the day of reconciliation. You see that so far? So this half of the surah so far starts with Allah's awesomeness, ends with Allah's awesomeness, and 2 mentions of His mercy. You see that so far? Okay, I'm going to keep going. We're going to look at this part now, 5 through 7. It starts with guidance. Ihdina, literally, guide us. Sirat al-mustaqim. It ends with people who don't have guidance. Walad dhalleen, don't make us like those who are lost. They don't have guidance. And in the middle, you actually do have mercy emphasized twice. Sirat al-ladhina an'amta alayhim, like the ones that you showed your favor on. Those people got Allah's mercy. Ghayr al-maghdubi alayhim. What did I tell you before? How is there mercy here? Allah did not put His name by the anger. Remember that? That's actually an expression of mercy. So mercy is actually mentioned twice. SubhanAllah. And in the middle, worship of Allah, prayer for guidance. Again, the first part summarizes the first part, prayer for guidance summarizes the second part. SubhanAllah. Just to summarize this a little bit, you have, I'll put this up. The first ring is about worship. Mercy is centered and stressed twice. The second ring is about prayer. Mercy centered and stressed twice. And the center is both about worship and prayer. This is the ring that Allah, this is the structure that Allah gave Fatiha. It's literally as if 2 ideas, 2 rings met and linked together. As if saying this is the surah that links us with God Himself, the Surat Al-Fatiha. You see that? SubhanAllah. SubhanAllah. That's amazing. And then one last one, and we'll call it a day, okay? You guys ready for this last one? In the beginning of class, I recited 2 surahs for you. What was the first one? And what was the second one I recited? I recited Nas, okay? We're going to see, because Fatiha is the beginning of the Quran, and Nas is the very end of the Quran, and maybe there's some things that we can kind of, see there. So I'm going to put Nas up actually alongside Fatiha. You'll notice a couple of things. First of all, you'll see Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, and then you'll see Qul a'udhu bi Rabbin Nas. So Rabb is mentioned in both surahs. You have Rabb, Master, and you have Master. Qul a'udhu bi Rabbin Nas. Then you don't have Ar-Rahman and Nas, do you? There's no mention of mercy in Nas. But you do have Maliki Yawmiddin, and over here you have what? Malik and Nas. Malik and Nas. By the way, Alameen is all people, and Nas means what? People. Then we say, Iyaka na'budu, you alone I submit myself to. When someone first submits to Allah, what's the phrase that they say? What's the shahada? What do they say? La ilaha illallah. What do you see here? Ilahin Nas. What's the only thing missing in Nas? Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. That's missing. Why is that missing? Remember I told you that du'as in the collective, things are normal. But du'as when on the individual level, there's something wrong. Fatiha is stressing mercy. And Nas is stressing protection. I seek refuge from the devil. Meaning I'm being attacked and I need protection. So Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, the positive word is taken out because it's about being afraid and wanting protection actually. So that's why it's being taken out there. You'll also notice again, collective, Iyaka na'budu, here, a'udhu, subhanallah, right? Iyaka na'budu, Iyaka nasta'in. And then you have, at the end over here, you have 2 groups of people that you seek protection from, so that you're not of these 2 groups of people. غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. And Nas, you also have 2 groups that you seek protection from. مِنَ الْجَنَّةِ وَالنَّاسِ. SubhanAllah. So there's even a mirror from the beginning and the end of the book. These 2 surahs nearly mirror each other. SubhanAllah. It's amazing. It's amazing stuff. That's everything. That's what I wanted to show you. Again, I remind you, the claim of this, yeah? We talked about this in detail before. But if you don't believe the Quran is the word of Allah, you believe it's the word of who? The Prophet ﷺ. That's who you believe it's from. Like a non-Muslim, that's where they think it comes from, is from this man. The question then that as believers we need to ask is, how does someone speak like this? How does that happen? That someone does a freestyle rap and it does in 25 words. Number one, summarizes an entire book and grammatically matches who's for Allah, who's for who. How do you do that in 25 words and make it the most repeated document in history for all mankind? Billions of times a day it's recited. We just learned probably the most incredible surah of the book that summarizes everything that we have. I ask, before we move on to the third part, let's make dua together, that Allah makes us people of the Quran, that Allah guides us through this book, that Allah shows us, number one, the guidance that we can get from the book, and also shows us the miracles in the book, and help us share it with everyone else around us. May Allah accept everything we've done in Ramadan, and make us people of Ramadan after Ramadan. May Allah accept from you and from myself. And we will end with Surat Al-Asr together. Yeah? So everyone together. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Everyone, wal asr, innal insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat, wa tawasaw bil haqq, wa tawasaw bis sabr. Allah says, I swear by time, every individual human being is in loss. The only way to save yourself is to do four things. Illa alladhina amanu, the people who believe, wa amilu salihat, the people who do good deeds, wa tawasaw bil haqq, they invite each other with the truth, and they invite each other with patience, even in a parking lot. May Allah reward you guys. And Claudius probably has some announcements.